Here we go. This segment brought to you by Crow Real Estate and Auction, Rivals Tap House and Grill, Nelson House Funeral Home, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, the ALS Association, and Z92.5 The Castle.
Go ahead, Jared. I got to hear your thoughts on this
Listen,
game at the Breslin Center.
Nothing makes my blood boil quite like losing to Michigan State in basketball. I don't know, something about it with the Izzo crowd going crazy, the college kids, the fact that just how we lost. I mean, I don't know about you guys. It just this team just is so soft. They have no heart. We're basically living and dying on Hunter Dickinson jump hook, baby hooks. This team's just not very good. I don't know if you blame it on Juwan because it's a good recruiting class. You know, we had high expectations for this team. So if this was another program, I feel like we'd be blaming the coach. But I'm not going that far. I'm just saying they're a young team, a lot to learn. I'm worried about the future of the program. If I'm being 100% honest, I'm worried that this is going to be a program that prioritizes recruiting over maybe, the actual play on the court. But I don't know. It just was an ugly game. Michigan State just owned us the entire second half. I've never seen a second half so lopsided in my life. I mean, that's something we would have never seen under Beeline. Maybe I'm just the anti-Juwan guy, which I don't want to be. I love Juwan. Juwan inspires. But it's just when you're getting your butt whooped by Michigan State like he did, I'm going to turn on you. And that's exactly what I'm feel myself doing right now.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've heard a lot of fans of Kentucky basketball, down here in the SEC talk about that they had to realize when Coach Calipari came in that this might be what our basketball program is now, because all of a sudden, Coach Cal is like the king of recruiting one and dones, and every few years it might click, like if you have an Anthony Davis or something like that. But there's going to be a lot of those years where it doesn't, because the freshmen don't come together and you don't have the right 2 or 3 upperclassmen. And I think that's something that if Juwan is going to be the guy for the next 10 or 15, whoever knows how many years, which it seems like he might be, well, Michigan fans might have to get used to this. If they're going to be recruiting a bunch of these phenom freshmen, that there might be years where it just doesn't come together, because you got a bunch of freshmen, and like I said, the upperclassmen that you have, it doesn't really work with the freshmen, and you're just basically like a decent basketball team. And that's what this team seems like. There's a ton of talent, so you can see that they could probably on any given night play with anyone, but they could also be like a first round exit in the Big Ten tournament, because, like we said, as much as we love Hunter Dickinson and he's fun to watch, when you're just doing that over and over, pounding the rock to him every possession. I mean, Michigan State was basically like, go ahead and do that. And, we're going to run on you and we're going to hit threes, and they end up winning by 20 or whatever. So, yeah.
The biggest problem I see, it's not necessarily Juwan. It's this team can't shoot, and this team doesn't play lockdown defense. And if you don't do either of those things, you're going to be middle of the road. Now, can they make a run later in the season? They got a fairly favorable schedule going down the stretch, and they can make some noise. But this is not the Michigan team maybe we thought we would see. Do we think, though, that they're going to become one of those programs? No, let me finish the thought. Yep. That they're going to be one of those programs that are really going to look to go after the 5-star one and doners. I'm not so sure about that. I think Juwan will still try to get a decent mix, but this year is just one of those teams that just can't shoot the ball, and I don't know if they have good enough senior leadership to go with them.
I think that's a big part.
I guess what sucks to me is just watching that. Like, that's the first game this year I've sat and watched it from start to finish, and let me just say, this might be the it makes you want to pull your teeth out watching this team play. They are so boring. They can't shoot. Their only offense is literally just throwing it into Dickinson and hoping that he can score. And Dickinson isn't even like an offensive mastermind. He's a decent offensive player. He was in the perfect role last year as like the second or third scoring option. It's just the team is boring, and that's what we never had under Beeline.
Right.
Say what you will about Beeline. Maybe they didn't win every game, but those teams were high scoring, fat, they could stroke it, and they had some characters that you wanted to root for. And there were some characters that you had seen for 3 or 4 years before they finally had their time to shine. And it's just I'm worried about the trajectory of the program. It's just 1 year, team's really young. But even these freshmen, none of these freshmen, I'm not looking at Caleb Houston. Is he going to save us in 3 years? I don't know about that. Diabate had some flashes in that game, but ended up getting body bagged by Max Christie in the final few minutes when they started trash talking. There's no one on this team that I circle as like a ray of light other than, I guess, Juwan Howard. Like maybe he can come up with some magic. They're always going to be entertaining in the fact that he is their coach. But in terms of what I saw on the court, literally it's like watching paint dry. Yeah. It's like watching Ted's 1958 team. That's what that was like.
It is. It does seem like that their offensive philosophy is almost like live and die with Dickinson and hope that someone makes a couple threes. And yeah, you're going to win some games like that because you're going to have a game where you're shooting well and you're going to win. But is that like a consistent way, philosophy of winning Big Ten basketball? No, because you got to play defense and all that kind of stuff. Like you were talking about, Ted, this team, they're not very good defensively. I think one thing too, we were all excited. We all like Eli Brooks, fantastic college basketball player. Eli Brooks, great career. But you're seeing that like he needs to be on a team like last year when you have 3, 4, 5 other options. And then he's that like spot up shooter. He could be a lockdown defender and just play his role. I think when he came into this team, people were expecting him to be like Franz Wagner or something. Like he was all of a sudden going to like take over and start scoring 20 a game. And it's like, that's just not his game. He's kind of had a little bit of an off season. And, you know, I think the big thing with you're talking about the freshmen, like who are we looking at? Recruiting is such a crapshoot. Even though Michigan had like a top 5 recruiting class or whatever it ended up being, it like look at Imani Brooks. Imani Brooks was supposed to be or Imani Bates. Sorry, he was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant, and he's kind of fizzling out right now. You have no idea how this is going to go with some of these recruits. So I think sometimes if Juwan gets 3 or 4 of these prospects, they're going to make a run to the Final Four because it's all going to come together. And then maybe they're going to have years like this year where, I mean, the team just looks checked out. Ted, you mentioned senior leadership. They weren't necessarily seniors, but I think this team clearly is missing guys like Franz Wagner, Isaiah Livers, Sean Day Brown. Oh, yeah. They don't have anyone like that. Like think about Sean Day Brown last year. They don't have anyone like that on this team this year. So I think they're missing that big time.
Well, I guess that's my biggest problem with Brooks. Is Brooks like our leader? Like, have you guys ever seen like this?
Who's the leader?
Have you ever seen Brooks talk? Like, does he actually talk? Every time they cut to him, it's like he's like expressionless. And the fact that guy's like supposed to be our leader, I don't know. I think that's problem number 1 right there. You're exactly right. 0 leadership. And that's what happened. When you have no leadership, guess what happens? You get ran out of the building in the second half in the Breslin. Maybe, you know, they'll probably play them a lot tougher at the Chrysler. But in the tournament and, you know, through the Big Ten tournament and in the big time road games during the Big Ten play, you need leadership. And this team doesn't have it.
Yeah, I would have expected maybe somebody like Johns to step up and be a leader on that team this year. And he's played all right, but sometimes you got to have the vocal leaders, you know, that are helping the coaches with the play on the court itself. And they're lacking that. This is probably, if they make the tournament, probably one and done more than likely. If they win a tournament game, hey, that's just a bonus and helping in the recruiting next year. But, you know, right now, Michigan State has their number. And as I tweeted in football, or I tweeted or I did a text, either football and basketball now, Michigan can't beat them. What's going on?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I honestly think with both programs, it's a mindset thing. I mean, we know Izzo, like if you want to use the whole little brother thing, the Michigan basketball program, you could say is Michigan State's little brother. You know, even as good as Beeline was, as good as Juwan has been in a short time, we all know Michigan State is the best basketball program in the state, even if we don't want to admit it. It makes me cringe to even say that. But, you know, Michigan has some catching up to do as far as being like a stable program. Michigan State can have like a down year and they're always going to be strong because of the program that Izzo has. And I think Juwan is still building that. Yeah, he had a great recruiting class, but like who are those like centerpiece players that you just like Gabe Brown, like Bingham, and some of these players that Michigan State has that you just can like hang your hat on, you know, night in, night out, what they're going to bring. Even Dickinson's been inconsistent this year. You know, he's going to be probably all Big Ten and, you know, whatever else he's going to be, but he may not be, but you know, like
defense,
he's been inconsistent. So, you know, can they make a run? I don't know about March Madness, even if they even make it, but what's stupid is because of the talent they have, I wouldn't be shocked if the Big Ten tournament they get hot and actually make a run to the finals in the Big Ten tournament or something like that, because they get some good matchups. Caleb Houston gets hot or something like that, and they make a run. But I wouldn't also be shocked if they lost to like Nebraska in the first round or something.
It's just like, I mean, it's just like we're holding off hope for Caleb Houston to.
Right.
Like, it's just kind of funny when you even just. It's just like, man, this team they're more dire than I thought. Like I said, I've been somewhat following them along this whole season. I see them beat Indiana. They're celebrating in the locker room. Like, man, this team's got some spunk. This could be a hell of a game on Saturday. And to just lay the egg the way they did, I mean, it's going to be a few more weeks before I tune back in. Probably the March, the rematch. What is it, March 1st? I believe they're playing again. Yeah. Probably be the next game I tune into, unless they go on some crazy winning streak. But Michigan State, they're a solid team. You talk about just a deep college basketball Izzo Michigan State team. It's this team. Yep. And something about this Max Christie guy, he's going to be a thorn in our side for the next time we play him this year and next year, and if he stays the year after that year as well. And especially when his body fills out. I mean, he looks like he's like 15 years old, and he's still filling it up. So when he hits puberty, it's going to be a big time trouble for us.
No, they're a good team. They're an Izzo basketball team. They've got veterans. They've got some young kids that came in, and they've got some great role players. I mean, they're a complete basketball team. I think for a long time, this season, people were starting to say like, hey, is Michigan State for real? Is Michigan State for real? I think it's pretty apparent that they're for real. But we know college basketball, like some of Izzo's best teams have gotten knocked out in the second round or, in the Sweet 16 or something. So, who knows if they're going to make a run to the Final Four. But would you guys be okay if Juwan kind of keeps this mentality, I guess, of like Coach Cal, keep recruiting these one and dones and hope it clicks?
If
every
we get
3 or 4 years, it does.
Like Diabate seems like I can see why he was a prize recruit. Like he's a great athlete, a little bit raw, only been playing basketball a few years. A lot of these other big recruits we brought in, I don't see where these it's like guys like I don't even know who's giving these guys these ratings. I don't see like the potential. I don't see it right now. But if he's bringing in studs with this way of doing things, the Coach Cal approach as you donned it, I'm fine with it if it wins us games. But if all it results in is big recruiting classes that can't put the ball through the hoop like what we saw on Saturday, and they're just boring to watch, I want nothing to do with it. At least with the Beeline teams, if maybe they were boring here or there, you knew who the players were, and they were guys you could root for. Like this year, it's the first year in a long time where we're going into the year totally blind, and I don't like it. I liked what Beeline was building here, and obviously we're never going to be able to recreate that, especially in today's climate, but I'm fine with it if he can win ball games. Is where I'm going with it.
And we probably won't see the Beeline type of coaching and recruiting anymore. But how about the Tom Izzo style? Let's go to that.
Yeah,
I'd be happy.
That's what
with
I mean.
it.
Like there can be like a middle ground. You can get your 2 or 3 players that are going to stick around for 2 or 3 years, and still get your like prized, top recruiting guys like Max Christie and some of these other guys that are going to be your leaders. So maybe Juwan's got to figure that out. We got to remember he's only been a head coach anywhere. He never head coached anywhere for this is what his 3rd season. So, with how things went last year and, the run that they made, I think we kind of, set the bar maybe a little high. He's obviously got some stuff to learn. You think about Izzo. It took Izzo a little while to figure out his, get his feet under him as a head coach or whatever. So hopefully that's just what's happening with Juwan. It's just kind of frustrating to see. I mean, Izzo, he's just so established. It's kind of like what we talked about with Joe Burrow. Like even when they're losing, he's just cool, doesn't care. Izzo's not cool on the sidelines. He's flipping his lid on the sidelines, but you can tell he's not worried. When Michigan was up, 3-4 early, whatever the lead was, Izzo's just like, keep doing your thing. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, it was like, they were just executing so much better. It wasn't like, our shots just weren't dropping. It was like we couldn't get a shot. It was just like I said it earlier. It was like pulling teeth, man. It was like put me in the dentist chair and extract a molar. I probably would have rather been doing that than watching that on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we all three didn't predict Michigan State was going to win that game, but it got a lot uglier than I thought it was going to be going into it. That's for sure. And we also talked last time about maybe right now we're really getting into the college basketball swing of things. And I happen to be looking at the schedule today. Boy, February is going to be fun. I mean, there's nonstop Big Ten matchups with Michigan and Michigan State and the rest of the Big Ten. It's going to be a fun February, I think.
Yeah, it always is. And, Michigan's got some makeup games. They have a makeup game with Purdue. They've got the one March 1st with Michigan State. And it's like they've got to prove it now, because I think last podcast you said, Ted, if Michigan loses this game, I would think they're definitely I haven't seen Joe Lenardi's, bracketology, but I would think they're on the outside looking in right now if they're even a bubble team. So they've got to prove it. And Juwan knows, his job is pretty secure, but he's got to prove himself too if he wants to get recruiting against Izzo and some of these other guys. So it's like put up or shut up time for Michigan, and they've got plenty of chances to do it. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, it's going to come down to really the last 4 games. They got 3 home games against Illinois, MSU now, and Iowa, and then they wrap up on the road in Columbus. So I think those last 4 games are going to be huge.
Yeah,
it will be. I think they're going to make the tournament. I mean, we've talked about it before. You win a few games in the Big Ten, where basically every time you win a game in the Big Ten, it's considered a big win. You're going to make the tournament. We saw it last year. A lot of people didn't think Michigan State should get in. They still got in. Get a couple of big wins under our belt going down the stretch here in February. We'll be in. And
especially
then from there, take our chances.
We know too, the committee wants to put Michigan in the tournament, even if it's the play-in game. They want to put Juwan Howard and Michigan in. So like you said, Jared, win a couple games, noteworthy games. They'll probably be all right, but then we'll see him get waxed against Towson or I don't know, some random school or something.
Well, it's going to be fun watching down the stretch. I just had on the TV in the background Duke and Notre Dame. Duke spanked them. I mean, Coach K, swan song. I mean, there's going to be a lot of sentimentality, him maybe taking home a national championship in his final year. And they got a good team. I don't know who you guys think, is going to win the national championship or be a contender at this point, but Duke's got to be right there. I know Bruce Pearl and Auburn, they're playing well. I mean, there's some pretty good teams out there, and Izzo Spartans, they can be right in the mix.
Yeah. It's just you mentioned Bruce Pearl and Auburn. Obviously, at the SEC network, people are loving that, Auburn being number 1. But when you think about Auburn basketball being number 1, it's one of those programs. Do you really think they're actually going to win a national title in basketball? But they're playing well, so we'll see.
They were on the precipice. I mean, they should have beat maybe a phantom foul call on Kyle Guy all those years ago on the Final Four. I mean, maybe they would have a national championship under Bruce Pearl. So, no, I'm loving it. February is the month where we round into the shape as a college basketball fan base. So this is where teams can stake their claim. They can stake their claim on my bracket for who I'm picking. So that's big news in the college basketball world.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
We can't wait to see it, Jared. We can't wait. All right, guys. It wasn't the game we wanted to see, Michigan State and Michigan, but congrats to Sparty, and they're playing well right now. 3-way tie in the Big Ten as we record this, and Michigan's got their hands full. But as we said, we got the whole month of February. Maybe they can make some adjustments to get something going. I will say this about Caleb Houston. I think the kid's still going to be all right. I mean, it's a learning curve for him this season. Right. He's had his ups and downs, but I think when we get to next year, he is going to be the leader of the team personally.
I sure hope so. People talked about him maybe being a one and done. I sure hope he doesn't do that. Yeah. But I mean, if he does, who cares? Do your thing. But it does seem like that second year leap could be really good. Let's hope.
All right.
So Max Christie has his number as far as I'm concerned.
That trash talk, that was probably the highlight of the game. When they started talking trash, I was like, man, I hope they reschedule this game at Chrysler because that could get pretty chippy.
It's going to be a fun game. I do like Diabate. I really do like him. He had some flashes in the game, but we'll see. I do. One thing I will throw out there. Do you guys start to worry at all about Juwan Howard? You guys kind of danced around it earlier. There's nothing about this that you worry about. You don't think that nothing has been a red flag?
I don't, just because, like I said, it's his 3rd year ever being a head coach. Even figuring out the recruiting game, I feel like he's mostly been recruiting off of his name, off of the Fab Five so far. And, he's going to find his ground, like what kind of guys he actually wants, what kind of players he actually wants, maybe figure out his rotations and stuff like that. 2 or 3 years from now, if this kind of stuff is still happening, we might wonder. But right now, I think he's fine.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, I'm not going to jump off the Howard bandwagon. I don't look at any games this season that he made coaching mistakes like he did at the end of last year. It just happens, right? But I think it's just the players and the mix they have right now with no shooters. And again, I can't say it enough. Defense. I mean, they had lockdown defense a year ago, and people always forget about that. That aspect of the game. It's huge. It really is. And they're letting the Spartans get all kinds of good looks at the basket. I mean, Joey Hauser's firing it up. I mean, it's just one of those years. It's just going to be a mediocre Michigan team that gets to the playoffs, and like I said, maybe wins a game, maybe doesn't. But that's it.
Do you guys think, real quick before we sign off, do you think, I saw some Spartans fans saying Hunter Dickinson might be the most hated Michigan player in the history, like even above Mo Wagner and Nick Stauskas and some other guys? If you were on the other side, would you like just loathe watching Hunter Dickinson play?
I think I would, to be 100% honest. I really do. Something about
every
him,
time he flexes after every basket he makes.
Loses his mind after every bucket. It's like a jump hook, and he's like screaming like he just dunked on somebody. I don't know. I'm just in a negative headspace right now when it comes to this team. So any sort of bait you're gonna throw into the waters, I'm jumping onto it.
Yeah, I could see that too. So I don't know. Let's just hope they turn it around.